through history between now and the end of time when the big boy arrives. Does everyone understand what I'm talking about? There are two versions of the Antichrist. There's the little version that will happen since the time of Jesus until he comes back. Then there's one specific Antichrist at the end of time. That is what is being talked about here. Both of them. They're describing both of them. All right? It is my understanding, it is just that, it's my understanding, so it's my opinion, that all this 3.5 years stuff, did you turn it off? Good, keep it off. Thank you. But I still say you should talk to Gretchen and find out. It shouldn't be that difficult. I've never had that problem before. It might be on a timer or something and someone just needs to undo it. So if you wouldn't mind, that would be great. Thank you. But thank you, Connie, for getting it off, for turning it off. That's great. The 3.5 years that's described here, the woman that goes into the wilderness for a time, times and a half time, did you catch that? Mm-hmm. The two witnesses in Revelation 11, how long do they prophesy? 42 months or 1,260 days, which all adds up to what? 3.5 years. So when we get to the beast, this beast is also about 3.5 years. Look at verse 5. And the beast was given a mouth uttering haughty and blasphemous words, and was allowed to exercise authority for 42 months. So we see this repetition since chapter 11. Chapter 11 of what? The same amount of time. We either have 42 months, 1,260 days. We have a time, times, and a half time. Okay? These are all saying the same thing. A time, times, a half. These are all 3.5 year periods. So there's something to be said about the last 3.5 years, if you will, of the world. And it centers around this Antichrist figure and his persecution of the church. They're definitely connected. Okay? And how do you know that? Verse 6. It opened its mouth to utter blasphemy against God, blaspheming in his name, his dwelling, and that is those who are in heaven. It was also allowed to make war with the saints and to conquer them. So at the end of time, this is part of that final purge that is mentioning in the Catechism, I believe, under the reign of the Antichrist. You're like, what in the Catechism? That's paragraphs 675 through 78, roughly. Specifically 676 and 677. It's the only place in the whole Catechism that even mentions the Antichrist. So if you want to know what the church says about the Antichrist, this final figure at the end of time, go there. All right? It's the only place that mentions it. All right? Verse 7. Also, it was allowed, we already read that. All authority was given over to every tribe and people and tongue and nation. Whoever this Antichrist figure is at the end of time will rule the world. Very similar, I would say, to the Caesars of Rome. And how they ruled absolutely over the known world at the time. Whoever this Antichrist figure is, I believe he will have universal authority. And unlike Hitler, Stalin, or any of these other petty dictators that have come down through the history of the world, I believe what will make the unique difference of the Antichrist is that people will willingly submit to him. That's what's going to be. There will be, if you will, a peer pressure on the world that if you don't submit, there's something wrong with you. Now the question is, why? This is more than just, mesmerizing crowds with your charisma like a Hitler. A lot of people look to Hitler as an example of the Antichrist. And while a lot of people were kind of like in a trance following this megalomaniac, there were many others that didn't. Many others that weren't, he wasn't very charming. He was really kind of a comical character. When Hitler first came to power, he was analogized to Charlie Chaplin. Because he looked like Charlie Chaplin. Didn't he?
Yeah.
People didn't take him seriously at all. They really didn't. They thought this was a joke. He was a joke. But the joke was on them. You know what I'm saying? The point is, when the Antichrist comes, he's not going to have that. I don't believe he's going to be that way. I think he's going to be very handsome. I think he's going to be in his early 30s. I think he's going to be this very charismatic figure. I think he's just going to be very charming to women in particular. I think men will look up to him as a brilliant mind. He will have this kind of power over people that is just, you can't imagine. I would say it's something like Kennedy. Something like that. Kennedy and the Kennedy administration has been seen as the Camelot. We talk about Camelot in American history because they were very youthful, he and his wife. They were quite a handsome couple. They were just charming, It's something like that, but more. Okay? And there's another element to this guy. We're getting to him. That's going to entrance the world. That's going to cause you to say, whoa, this is something more. He's more than just a man. This is someone superhuman. And if we don't follow him, we're nuts, because he's got the answers to our problems. All we have to do is follow him. That's how it's going to be, in my opinion, what the end of the world is going to be like. Okay? Where do you get that, Chip? Where is that coming from? Well, keep reading. Verse 8. And all who dwell on the earth will worship it. This is the second time we've heard about they will worship this guy. And this is more than the worship that was given to the Caesars in Rome. I think that's an element of it. I think that that's part of it. And I think that's kind of like a sort of foreshadow of what it's going to be like during the Antichrist. But it's more than that. It's going to be more than that, in my mind. And all who dwell on the earth will worship him. Everyone whose name has not been written in the book written before the foundation of the world in the book of life of the Lamb that was slain. The whole point of this section is that we're contrasting those who follow the woman and her man-child, that offspring, and now those who follow the dragon and his offspring, the beast. You see that? And that's an eternal message. Doesn't matter whether we'll never see the Antichrist in our lifetime or not. What matters is that this 2 lines has been from the dawn of time. We've seen it in Cain and Abel. We see it in Seth and the followers of Cain also. We see this distinction between the people of God and those that are not following God. The people that followed and built the Tower of Babel and those that didn't. Those who went on the ark and those who didn't. It's always this separation. Those who follow God and those who don't. That's the eternal message that's being illustrated here. Specifically, at the end of time, it's going to be a very stark contrast Those who worship and follow this guy, this political figure, and those that won't, the political dissidents. That's going to be you and me. Just telling you now. All right? And don't deceive yourselves, my brothers and sisters. You will be very persuaded by this guy. Don't think yourselves immune. We deceive ourselves if we think that, well, I couldn't be deceived by something like that. This guy will appear to be quite amazing. It will split families. You know, why aren't you following person X? I mean, look what he's done. He's brought peace to the Middle East. He's charming. He's bringing, solving the world's problems. He's this grand and glorious figure. Of course we should follow him. Who wouldn't? That'd be stupid not to. We've been looking for someone like this for a long time. Haven't we? No. No. But the world will hail him as the man of the hour. Trust me. If anyone who has ears, let him hear. That's the only other time in the book of Revelation we hear that. And it doesn't say anything about the Spirit. You notice that? Because in the letter to the churches it says, he who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches. This is different, but that's how powerful it is. You've got to be aware of this. If anyone is to be taken captive, to captivity he goes. If anyone slays with the sword he must be slain. Here is call for endurance and the faith of the saints. Hardships are coming. This is not going to be an easy time. Whatever your fate will be, will be. It will test your faith. The Catechism says it's the final purge the church must go through, its final purification before it meets its bridegroom. Okay? That's the purpose of this. Here's the second reason why this guy must appear. It gives evil a chance to destroy itself. You realize up until now, evil is held at bay. Evil doesn't get to do whatever it wants. God keeps it at bay. When this happens, it's as if God is allowing the leash to go much longer than it is now. And when it does so, what happens is evil will destroy itself. That's the purpose of all of this.
Not to detract from what you just said,
Mm-hmm.
it would seem like evil, small petty evils, still raises ugly him.
Oh, yes.